Welcome ladies and gentlemen, my name's Dychronic, you're here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Ace of Spades exotic hand cannon. Now obviously this is not a new weapon, it has been out for over 2 years since Forsaken. However, there have been a number of very important changes that have made this weapon, in my opinion, probably one of the best PvP hand cannons or just PvP weapons in the game. Now a lot of this is due to the fact that at the beginning of this season in Beyond Light, they scaled back the 600 RPM auto rifles and completely got rid of the 150 RPM hand cannon, allowing the 140s and this particular hand cannon to be a lot more competitive. And in this video, I wanted to talk about the reasons why this particular weapon deserves at least a top 3 spot for PvP primaries in the game and how it compares to the other weapons in the meta, as well as talk about how this weapon fares in PvE, because it actually is a really good PvE weapon as well. If you've never heard of the weapon before, it drops pretty early in the Forsaken campaign. It's the Ace of Spades quest, you really can't miss it, and the catalyst is also in there as well. It's a 140 RPM exotic hand cannon that deals kinetic damage with an infinite sunset. When it comes to the perks on this weapon, I always like to describe it as cheating, because some of these perks are literally 2 perks in one. First perk here is going to be Memento Mori. Reloading after a kill loads magazine with a few extra damaging bullets, i.e. kill clip, but better, and grants radar while aiming down sights, i.e. third eye from Destiny 1. Couple of miscellaneous perks like corkscrew rifling, giving you more range, stability, and handling, high caliber rounds for more range, and of course more flinch on enemies. A really big one here, Firefly, where precision kills give this weapon an increase to reload speed, i.e. outlaw, and cause the target to explode, dealing solar damage to nearby enemies, i.e. Dragonfly. So as you can see, there are 2 perks in the game that are literally 4 perks. And not only that, these particular 4 perks are literally the perks that you'd want to have on most guns in this game. You got a reload perk, you got a damage perk, you got a specialty utility perk, and you have extra damage from Dragonfly, which is not usually something you want, but it's always nice to have. And lastly, the catalyst increases the damage caused by Firefly explosions when the weapon's Memento Mori perk is active. In my opinion, the most fun use of this weapon and a great combination with this catalyst is going to be Chromatic Fire, an exotic chess piece for the Warlocks that allow your kinetic weapon crit hit kills to actually cause a Dragonfly explosion. And with this weapon and that exotic, you get double the explosions. And before I move on with the main section of the video, we're going to be talking about PvE, PvP, time to kills, feelings, and all that whatnot. I just wanted to mention my Nexus page actually currently has some Black Friday sales very similar to Steam prices. And if you wanted to pick up Forsaken, you can get it for 50% off, or if you wanted to pick up all the other things you can see on my page, a lot of great deals, so go check that out. Link in the description down below. Moving on, let's go ahead and talk about this weapon in PvE very briefly, and then I'll get into the PvP section. When it comes to this weapon in PvE, honestly, it is a fantastic weapon. It has great stats overall, insane range, perfect 100 recoil pattern, of course, those insanely good perks. I often describe this as having a great ratio of DPS to range that can handle almost anything comfortably. And with that, the range is the literal highest of any 140 RPM hand cannon in the game, and of course higher than most 120 RPM hand cannons, the Stern with the Catalyst and the high range Crimmel's Dagger being the only ones that are really much higher than it. And when it comes to pairing with this weapon, honestly, I like shotguns and fusion rifles. Things like the CQC-12, first in last out, are going to be my favorites. I would say this weapon only really has one downside, is that it's an exotic primary. Currently, the PvE meta leans very heavily towards the exotic specials and some exotic heavies, and an exotic primary is not very optimal. Moving on, let's talk about this weapon in PvP. First up, I wanted to talk about the time to kill of a lot of competing items. Now, I've covered a lot of this in previous videos. It's pretty much the same numbers as I've mentioned before, but I did want to reiterate the fact that the time to kill on this weapon is not the most optimal as compared to a lot of other options. When it comes to the 140 RPM hand cannons, the optimal time to kill, i.e. just full headshots, is 0.86, and the real time to kill, if, for example, you're getting half headshots, half body shots, is going to be 4 shots at 1.3. The no time to explain, cold denial, 340 pulse rifles in general, optimal time to kill of 0.7 is obviously a significant amount better. However, the real time to kill is pretty close at 1.233. And finally, the Gnawing Hunger or any 600 RPM auto rifle, even though they did technically get a nerf, the time to kill is still better at 0.8 for the optimal, and of course 1.0 for the real. And obviously these 600 RPM auto rifles have a little bit more range, and of course they are a bit easier to use. Now with this in mind, why am I claiming the Ace of Spades is is one of the #1 PvP weapons in the game. Firstly, like I said before, it has a number of really useful perks. High caliber rounds just really helps in flinching the target. It has incredible range of 78, that's really high. Just the ability to see your radar while aiming down sights really helps get the first shot on enemies. The fact that you always reload faster, your kill clip momentum mori thing lasts a really long time. It doesn't go away until you use them or switch weapons. There are so many benefits that this weapon has just from its perks alone. And with that, there's a lot of tiny nuances that, of course, the 140 hand cannons have an advantage over the other weapons. For example, the Gnawing Hunger, you have to have a sustained fire on a target that is open, whereas the hand cannons, you can peek in and out of cover, fire off one shot, go back behind cover. That really disrupts the DPS and the time to kill of automatic weapons. And I know a lot of people's biggest question is going to be, how does the Ace of Spades compare to a lot of the other meta weapons? And currently, the Destiny 2 meta, from my perspective, is the most varied meta that we've ever had. It's no longer just one specific weapon or one specific archetype. With a secondary, we have a lot of options. Things like the No Time to Explain or Cold Denial 340 pulse rifles, the Vigilant Swing, the Sunshot, Dire Promise or 140s in general, and even some scout rifles are tearing it up in the Crucible. Now obviously each one of these weapons has their own advantages. Some of them are better at close range, some of them are better at long range, some of them are more punishing but better time to kill. There's a lot of different ways the Ace of Spades will be better or worse than a lot of these weapons. I would say in general though, the Ace of Spades has some of the best stats, some of the best perks for the type of weapon that it is, and in my opinion, one of the easiest weapons to use as a new player and still very effective in veteran hands as well. And one of my favorite things about this weapon is that it actually can two-shot headshot if you stack 2 damage buffs together. For example, getting Momentum Mori plus High Energy Fire, you can two-shot headshot normal enemies in the game. And you can combine any number of buffs, things like High Energy Fire, Inertial Override, the Stasis Fragment damage buff, the damage buffs in general, the Empowering Rifts. All you have to do is stack Momentum Mori plus one of those other buffs and you can get 2-shot kills from a pretty significant range. And when it comes to pairing an energy weapon with Ace of Spades, I would recommend either a shotgun or a sniper. Both will work, my personal favorite being Felwinter's Lie and Adored. And for pairing mods, honestly the biggest weak point of this weapon is going to be the handling, so a hand cannon dexterity is going to be really nice, and the aforementioned High Energy Fire standard build for that. And with these subclasses, try to go with something that gives you an extra damage buff. Like I said before, Inertial Override, the Stasis Fragment damage buff, or Empowering Rifts. They all work pretty well. And that is going to be pretty much the end of the video. That is my analysis of the Ace of Spades. That is why I believe it to be nearly top 1, if not #1 PvP primary in the game. Now obviously I have not done a full rundown of PvP primaries. I'll be doing that spreadsheet at a later date once I have collected enough data. But yeah, that's the end of it. My name is Dychronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.